Hey, and welcome back to Bubbly and Blazers, your go to podcast for bold conversations, business tips, and the bubbly moments that make it all worthwhile. I'm your host, Shayla, and today's episode is a solo one, straight from me to you. So pour yourself a glass, whether that's wine, bubbly, or maybe even tea. Settle in, and let's talk about something that every ambitious business professional needs to hear: how to own your value and ask for it. So, this isn't just about promotions and raises, it's about recognizing your worth, speaking about it confidently, and having the tools to sell yourself. So, whether you're a 9 to 5, asking for a new title, or maybe running your own business, or you're learning how to talk about your skills without shrinking. Today, I'm going to touch on how to shift your mindset around money and value, when and how to ask for more without feeling weird about it, how to build your case and present it with confidence, ways to sell yourself while still feeling authentic to who you are, and what to do if the answer is no, because you will hear it from time to time. So, playing small won't get you the paycheck or the respect you deserve. So, let's dive into it. Uh, I really wanted to touch on this topic today because money is something that growing up, it was a very taboo conversation to talk about. Not only I'd say with friends or family, these are just conversations that people weren't having, didn't want to have. But then when I started to enter the workforce, I got my first job. Well, my first job was babysitting when I was probably 12 years old, and have worked since. So going into, my professional career, and even through university, money was a conversation that was very sensitive to a lot of people. And I've seen this unfold in so many different ways that I thought it was a really important one to touch on and offer some suggestions, tips, tricks, things I've learned along the way. Because let's face it, money is a conversation we have to have. So why not be confident in how we have it and have the proper tools to know how to have those conversations constructively? So I'll share kind of you a story too about my first, I'd say, like, real moment of realizing that I was getting in my own way when it came to money. I used to work in a retail setting. And again, going back to my experience of money being an uncomfortable topic, this retail store had a shoe selection, and the shoes were quite nice quality. Often they were made handmade, as well. Excuse me, they were handmade in Europe, and so they came with a little bit higher price point on them. Now, that was something that was interesting to learn. And what I found in that experience is when I started, there was often a lot of like conversations like, "Oh, that's expensive," or "Wow, that much for those." And I started to realize that those conversations and those comments really started to get in the way of kind of how I was selling the product. I'd often shy away from the higher sale item. I would maybe not pick something out that I thought was appropriate for someone, even though it was everything they were asking for, just because of the price tag. My boss at the time kind of mentioned that to me in a good way, constructive way, and kind of mentioned, like, try not to let your own personal budget influence the sale that you're doing. And I thought that was a really good point that he made, and it wasn't until he said that I really started to take a step back and realize, was I getting in the way of my own sales? I mean, sure, not everyone's going to be able to afford this particular item, but there are a clientele that can. And why am I deciding what they're willing to spend money on? This retail setting was a little bit more, let's say, health focused as well. So we were also offering a service in the shoes that we were providing for people. Often they're coming to us because they had hard to fit feet, they were in pain, and we were providing options that were comfortable and going to help them in their day to day. So why was I not offering the best product for them and instead getting stuck on what that sticker price was? So I would say that was my first real encounter with realizing how much my own biases around money were getting in the way. And then, of course, we have things like asking for, a promotion, asking for, you know, extra thing, bonuses, things like that. Those conversations all started to unfold. And then fast forward, to starting my own business in the fall. And these are conversations that now I have to have if I'm going out there and marketing myself, if I'm trying to get a new client. Money is a conversation that comes up. So through my experience over the last few years, I really want to take that and share that with you guys because I think there's huge value in it. And like I said, it's important. We can't shy away from the money conversation. So I think it's important to provide some insight as to what's helped me. So I think let's start with knowing your value really starts with believing it. So, let's be honest here. No one's going to hand you a raise or opportunity just because you're nice or you work hard quietly in the background. You have to see your own value before anyone else will. So mindset is key, right? Confidence doesn't mean arrogant. Let's be clear on that. But instead, it's clarity on what you bring to table. So knowing the strengths, knowing your value, knowing the things that make you stand out from others, I think is the first step into really feeling confident in who you are as a person and as a professional. The second point to that is to stop waiting for external validation. This is something that I definitely have learned in a lot of different aspects of my life, professional setting being one of them. Start believing in yourself, taking taking the experience, taking the skill sets that you've learned and really honing in on them and realizing that you do add value to what you're doing. So that can be as easy as starting to track your wins, noticing your impact, and even writing down things that, are kind of unique to you. Going back through your jobs, writing out kind of the roles and responsibilities that you had, and maybe highlighting a few areas that, make you different from other people that you surround yourself with. And then start to think like a business. So, what's the return on investment that you provide? Do you help a company save time? Do you help them make money? Do you bring peace? Those are all value adders. So, start to think in terms of a business as to what you truly are helping them do with your skill set. Now, I kind of touched on it, but one thing that I do really suggest, and I think is a great first step to helping build your own confidence, is to track these. Start a value file. And you don't have to share this with anyone. It can just be like a personal notes in your phone, even. But start writing down little wins that you have. Did a customer give you a huge compliment this week? Were you offered a bonus at work? Were you given a gift? Look at the metrics. How many sales did you have this quarter compared to last? Did you implement a new initiative at work that brought in a new client? Did you have any successful projects? That's your ammo. And that's what you're going to use to really help build your confidence and also be able to ask for those hard money conversations, whether that's a promotion or whether that's selling your services. You need to have that bank of examples that you can lean on so that you can provide those as almost a testimony to who you are and your work ethic. So if you don't already, start a little notes tab, start a little file, and start keeping track of those wins along the way. Okay, next part of it, the business of you. So whether you're selling your services or pitching for a promotion, you are your own best advocate. So language matters, right? Use confident, intentional phrases like, here's what I brought to the role, project, or business. This is the value I created. Based on results, here's what I believe to be a fair next step. Don't over-explain. Don't apologize. Don't shy away. Keep it clear, direct, and grounded in facts. Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. Look at the numbers and provide that as your base for moving forward. And, if you're a business owner, this is key, but I think also worth mentioning because I'm guilty of this as well. Don't flinch when stating your prices. You've done the work. Now you have to own the rate. And people pick up on that. Whether that's you kind of closing in your shoulders as you say, oh, my services are this much an hour. Whether that's you over explaining, well, it is on the pricier side. No, be confident in the price you set. Ask yourself, would I hire me at this price? If the answer is yes, then start saying it like you mean it. Don't shy away from that because people pick up on it. And that lack of confidence in yourself starts a seed of doubt in that customer's mind or in that employer's mind that you don't fully believe, trust, feel confident enough in yourself to be setting that price. So why should they buy in at it? Then let's talk about what you do with a no. So it's going to happen. None of us like to be rejected or feel like we failed. I mean, I know that I've scared away from opportunities that I think are going to be a no. Again, putting my own biases and stepping in front of myself, getting in the way of possible opportunities because I've shied away from hearing a no. But let's be honest, you'll get a no or not yet. But that doesn't mean that your ask wasn't valid. And it doesn't mean that the price you quoted someone isn't fair or valuable. It just means that maybe right now that customer isn't for you. Maybe right now that raise isn't a good time. Maybe right now the business can't afford to pay you what you're worth because they're struggling in other ways. Maybe right now is not the time, but it doesn't mean that you're worth less. So use no as data, but don't use it as defeat. I mean, let's be honest here. Say you set a price, you go out, you have 100 sales calls, and every person says no. Okay, maybe that's a time where you start to reflect about where you're sitting in the market. I would hope you did a little bit of market research so you know that you're sitting in a fair price. And hey, maybe you swung 100 times, but the 101 time that you ask someone, it's going to be a yes. Don't lose doubt, but just collect the information as data. Second piece to that, ask for specifics. So when someone says no, ask follow-up questions, what would need to happen to revisit this? Or what feedback do you have for growth? That's a great one if you're talking about promotion or within a company. Again, finding out what the reason is behind it. If they can't give you feedback on growth, or maybe they start a conversation with knowing like, we see your value, we see what you're bringing on the table, but we just can't afford it at this time. Okay, what can I do to help get to that point? What would be a realistic timeline that I could expect to work towards that? These are all great questions. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the no and letting our emotions take over that we forget these follow-up questions. We so quickly throw up our walls that we forget that we can continue to talk about it. And understand that there's more layers to it than just a quick response. So, when you're going into a conversation, whether it's a promotion conversation or if it's you selling your business, products, services to someone, come prepared that they will say no and think ahead of what those questions might look like for you. I found for me personally, that's a really great way to feel confident going into a room. If I know my follow-up questions, then I already am expecting maybe the answer to be no. I feel way more confident having that conversation and I don't feel as much pressure because I'm expecting that I could be told no. So prepare for the no. And if you know you're worth more, but it's not being recognized, maybe it's time for your next big power move. That's not quitting, that's strategy. So, things come to a head, and maybe the job you're working at, you've given them so much, you've proven your value, you've brought your worth, but there's just no way that you're going to get to that next step that you think, or not think, you know that you're worth and you know you want to get to. Maybe it's time to reevaluate. you know? And that doesn't mean quitting the job. It means taking a look as to what your goals are, where you want to get to, because money isn't necessarily everything. Sometimes we take less money for a position that we want to grow our skill sets. Sometimes we take less money because it's going to provide us a lifestyle balance that we're looking for. So don't be so quick to get hung up on, oh, I'm only making this much an hour, or this is what my salary looks like, or, I can't get a raise for another 6 months, and start comparing yourself to maybe other people. Think about the things that really matter to you. And, hey, money does make the world go around. It's still important. I'm not saying that. But is what you're going after really that important to this one conversation? And if it is, well, then again, maybe it's time to have some tougher conversations, and maybe it's time to make some bold moves. But remember, the people who are confident enough to ask are usually the ones who grow. Not because they always get a yes, but because they show up with courage anyway. So let's do a quick breakdown, because that was a lot of information to pack into one episode here. So, our bubbly breakdown, quick recap: your value is real. So, track it, speak it, own it. Asking isn't business, or sorry, asking isn't begging, it's business. Practice makes power. So, role play your answer, rehearse your pitch, discuss with friends, prepare for the no. And then don't discount yourself to make others feel comfortable. Make sure that you're confident in the prices you're setting, and understand that maybe that person, maybe that opportunity just isn't quite a match for you right now and what your value is. And then remember, of course, a no now isn't a no forever. And it doesn't mean that the answer is always going to be no. So be confident in what you're offering, and don't get discouraged or wrapped up in the no. Just use it as the redirection towards something else and something bigger. All right. If no one's told you lately, remember that you are valuable, you're capable, and you're worthy of that paycheck, that opportunity, that next level door you're about to open. So, whether you're pitching yourself to a client, a boss, or just building up the courage to believe you can change what you're worth, remember, power moves start with knowing who you are. So thanks for hanging out with me on Bubbly and Blazers. Even though I miss Ainsley, and looking forward to having her join in on the next conversation, I'm excited that we got an opportunity to connect. So if today's episode gave you a little boost, share it with a friend, post about it, hit play again when you need that little extra pep talk. Thank you again for joining in and listening to me. If you like today's episode, make sure you subscribe and send it to a friend. Until next time, Blazers on, confidence up. Cheers.